Hi. I'm Stryker. This is Career Campaigns, Changing Your Professional Class for an InfoSec Role. This was kind of born of the presentation that I wished I had had when I was trying to pivot in unsuccessfully for quite some time. So this is the things I learned as told through a D&D metaphor. Basically, we're going to pretend that our resumes are D&D character sheets, and how do you reclass or reskill them? But that's a bit of a spoiler. So first things first, I have a QR code. Please scan that if you would like to access the folder of all of the materials. This will include today's Excel sheets, where you can pick one and play along as we go through this particular presentation. You don't have to. It will also include all of the reference worksheets that will be at my workshop tomorrow. So if you guys are going to come, that's awesome. And if you don't, here's the materials. And also, if your personal threat profile does not account for QR codes at a security conference, I'm sorry, I don't have much for you. So, first section, we're going to go through just, again, what I used to do, my attempted pivot, and kind of some of the context of the wider InfoSec hiring landscape at the time. Then we have what I've kind of coined as an opportunity formula, where we get into, well, how do you actually break in to any job? How do you get any opportunity? And what can you change and what can't you change? And then fairness, in quotes, because life ain't fair. Third, we'll be literally reclassing the resume. So this is how I personally revised my resume to start getting interviews and eventually a job, actually 2 jobs. So funnily enough, I first presented this at a conference in Canada in October of 2024. A month and a half before I went on stage, my previous employer laid me off. So I was about to present, how do you break into cybersecurity having been laid off of that job? So thus ensued the most frantic pivot and attempt to get a job I have ever had. And about 2 weeks from the day I got laid off, it was actually exactly 14 days that I got my offer letter from my current employer. I currently work for a major US insurance company within their internal cyber threat intelligence team. And for the record, what I mentioned is not necessarily indicative of how we do things at work, and is drawn from many of my previous employers. Finally, we'll get into show, don't tell. So how do you classify different types of augmentations to your resume? Because you don't have to just reclass it. You can actually buff it up for the new class you want to take. And then it's a little bit of interview advice. Wherever you see the little icon, like the first document, that's the V1 we'll be working with of the resume or the character sheet that I've provided. V2 is the reclassed or reskilled version, depending on what you choose. And then every time there's a little D20 there, that's where we're going to be rolling. So again, you're welcome to participate. You don't have to be good at tabletop RPGs or even know what that is in order to do this workshop today, but if you guys wanted to play along, that would be great. So hi, I'm Stryker. I spent about 10 years previously in marketing. I know, I sent those emails you hated, and I'm really sorry. My specialization was actually something called content marketing. That's where you have to research something better than your audience knows so that you sound like you know what the hell you're doing, and then you create things of value. I was so far up what they call the funnel, like I never messed with money. All I wanted to do was help all of my audience with really well-researched, really in-depth things that they could then use in their everyday jobs, and then when they were considering for multi-millions of dollars for contracts, they would think well of my employer. I did that for about 10 years. Kind of climbed every mountain there, did a whole bunch of different roles, and I worked at a lot of small to medium-sized businesses where I was the most technically enabled person there. And whenever that happens, you end up doing a lot of the work yourself. I have personally moved over, migrated entire databases and websites to different platforms. I have done DNS redirects and pushed a patch to a website on a Friday, because that's smart, and then had to roll back to last known good. I have had to wrestle with the question, the man who owns the company, pays my bills, and paid for this database, wants God access. And he forgot to pay the hosting bill last month. This is not a good idea. How do I handle that? So I actually had to do a lot of IT and frankly cybersecurity things while I was in marketing, and I had no idea until I worked for my next employer. So I used to work for a company who was often in the news for breaches from China. And I was hired to be their cybersecurity content person. I discovered, in learning more about my new audience, wow, I like you guys way more than I like my marketing peers. And you guys do something good. I wanted to, if you'll excuse the pun, I wanted to do something good instead of email. So I, on my own dime, paid for and went to Black Hat, and where I was threatened with death and dismemberment if I talked to any member of the media. And then I went to DEF CON, and boy howdy, that was an adventure. And I went because I wanted to see if you guys could use somebody like me. And all of my responses, I brought all of my old research, I brought all of the things and kind of just laid it out and said, do you want me? To people who weren't hiring, which is always a great sample. And they said yes. And all of my initial research seemed to back that. Now, this is from the ISC2 workforce study, and again, this is one of the certifying agencies, so of course they have an axe to grind. Keep that in mind. But the estimated workforce, while it only grew about 7% year over year for this last survey, it seemed to have more than enough space for someone like me to interfere. There was a gap, and this is the gap between the number of current estimated people employed and how many more people they need in order to properly secure organizations. This is an estimate, and this is what everybody keeps saying, oh, we need more people in cyber. We have all of these positions in cyber. And, you know, so clearly there could be room for me. And on top of that, there were hiring managers in this same survey and others I could cite that said, yeah, we need more people to get involved in cyber. Not only that, that we need people of all levels of experience in cyber. So my personal experience that I had gotten in marketing, that marketing managers never cared about and just wanted to know how well I could copyright or how many dollars my emails ended up generating. I'm sorry. They could use somebody like me who was patching together this experience and just wanted to pivot in. I was managing people, I've built teams, I've done the whole revenue thing. I was willing to go back to being an individual contributor just to be able to be one of you. Not only that, but of the practitioners in the field, those who had a degree in a field that wasn't cybersecurity related, that wasn't IT, that wasn't comp sci, said they found it useful, or had previously worked in an IT position. They found those things useful. I could be useful. And that's all I've ever really wanted to be, was useful. Behold, the field of mine interviews. Lo, it is barren. Now, this is a little bit arrogant to say, but there is kind of a funny running joke in my ex's friend circle that I have this weird magic touch with getting interviews. It was like every year, like, oh, how's work going? I'm like, yeah, I started a new job. And like, again? I'm like, yeah. I mean, you can't hop? So apparently, I have a weird, odd magic touch with this. So when I say that I had no interviews, no callbacks, I was ghosted, this is weird for me. Again, super freaking privileged, right? And I had a think. And when I had a think, I rage clean. That's the only time my house ever gets dusted. And on a back shelf with a whole bunch of games that I hadn't had a chance to play because I was so busy studying for exams and thinking about this pivot, I found an old D20, which I think is in my pocket. I found a D20, which is a 20-sided die. It's used a lot in tabletop role-playing games. And I realized I had been thinking about this entirely incorrectly. I was really good at what I did. I had done the equivalent of having like a level 20 bard with all of these really super specific skills, all of these really super specific spells, all of these abilities, and I wanted to transfer in to a warrior barbarian party. They know that I'm good. They can see that I'm useful. They don't know what to do with that, right? It's like trying to defend a castle with a guitar. I mean, I could totally make up a story about how that would work, but it doesn't immediately bridge that gap when there are so many really good people who do. We're back to privilege. So I had to use some of that guitar and figure out not only what I needed to add to my resume to make myself competitive, but how do I tell the story about what I used to do, kind of what I did a little bit earlier? How do I tell that in a resume and in an application so I at least get the shot of talking to a hiring manager? And with that, here are our character sheets for today. These are bastardized and modernized and very trimmed down. These are Excel sheets that you can download to your phone, if you wish. If you access the folder earlier, those are view only, so please do save your own copy on your phone. If you want to play, if you don't, that's fine. I have examples here. So I have examples for the soft skill professional, which is someone like me, someone from the humanities, someone with that, what do you do with the BA in English? Threat intelligence, as it turns out. Hard skills professional. So these are your developers. These are your data science people. These are your, I would dare say, cybersecurity professionals who want to actually migrate to a different niche because they have niched and specialized and not been entry level for so long that now they've just been pigeonholed, not niched. And they'd like to move to something different. So I would recommend using that one. And if you are any sort of student, and I include master's degree students right now, if you are any sort of student at all, specifically comp sci and cybersecurity, please use the third. Word to the wise, I will punish you if you dream big on this. I am your DM for today, and I am not playing fair because the job market does not. Again, if you use the QR code in any of those, it will prompt your phone to go ahead and save it to Drive, save it to Files, and then you can open up the Excel and be able to use this during the exercise if you wish. I have screenshots, you don't have to, and you don't ever have to have played before. Also, if you're specifically interested in how to get promoted and using your cyber skills to do that in kind of a different context, I highly recommend you look up Wes Shepard's Failing Upwards from BSides 2023. That is a lovely QR code to access that on YouTube. It is fully free. Highly recommend. All right, so we're going to make up our very first resume as a demonstration of why I sucked. I'm going to use the soft skill starter here. There will, by the way, be a mixture of screenshots from my personal cell phone and then my computer, because I updated this, so there you go. You'll see here in general stats, this is just who you are to start off with. Everybody has a class debuff of -3. When I say debuff, I mean every time I ask you to roll, and you have to roll at least this number or higher to succeed at whatever we're trying, as we'll do a little bit more demonstrably during my workshop tomorrow, an interactive. We have a whole role-playing thing. It's going to be fun. Your background counts against you every time, and we'll get a little bit more into that. So everybody has a -3. I'm not just picking on one class or another. For gender, you can go ahead and pick whichever one you most present as right now, or you can roll, and if it's odd, each of those categories with the underline is a clickable hyperlink to a dice roller because I did not want to play ping pong all over the floor. If you end up rolling odd, you're male, and if you roll even, you're female, or presenting. I'm well aware that gender is more than a spectrum. This is for demonstration purposes. So, race. You can be an elf or a dragonborn. This is pretty much the remnant of my fantasy original version of this, which was very allegorical. If you roll an even, you're an elf, and if you roll an odd, you're a dragonborn, or you can just pick one because it's cool. Hey, look. I think some of you are starting to understand, just based on what you've rolled, that doing this is really hard, and I have weighed my worksheet accordingly. Not only that, most people are coming up through an IT position. Most people have a bachelor's degree in comp sci or in cybersecurity. The days when you could get by on just your portfolio alone, especially in this job market, which has laid off a ton of really talented people that you're now competing for and competing at levels and skills and roles that previously they would just skip, my God, this is not going to be fair. And I'm really, really sorry about that. Which brings us to this. as I explain why you guys see the negative debuffs on your character sheet that you see right now if you're playing along, and I'll show you them here too. Opportunity is basically equal to luck plus preparation. And then every time you fail, you just try again, so it's multiplied by the number of attempts. The more times you try, the more bites at the apple you ultimately get. There are environmental factors that can give you, there are things you can do and things that you are that give you an advantage. There are things you can do and things that you are that just don't give you a disadvantage. There are things that you do and things that you are or were that give you a really big disadvantage. My previous marketing degree, my previous marketing legacy, my career, that's 10 years of awards, of metrics, of all of this, my portfolio, most of it was junk. Because you guys really hate marketers. A lot. I don't blame you. I truly don't. I'm sorry. Again, I'm like apologist here. That weighed against me. Everyone could see what I had done previously, and they judged me before they had a chance. I had to compensate for that. It wasn't right. It wasn't fair. But I had to be that much better than every other option that they got through the door to be able to even get my shot. And again, it's not right. It's not fair. It is what it is. And you guys have to find ways to weigh the balance in your favor if you really want this to work. So, luck, in part, are those things that we are or can be perceived about us that we cannot change. I could not change, for example, the fact that I'm a girl, or I present as one. I am. How many white men do you know in cyber? I rest my case. How many white people do you know in cyber? A little bit less, a little more even, but even so. Race and gender give opportunities, or really don't give a disadvantage, depending on what you have. It's not right, it's not fair, but you have to acknowledge those. And it's not every team, right? It's not every community, it's not every organization, but assume the worst here. There are also environmental advantages that you get that don't weigh against you. When I was trying to do my switch, I have a small child, he's 5 and crazy, was in a Dora the Explorer mode when I first got my website, so Stryker, no striking, there you go. I was still married at the time. That meant I did not have the bills I have now. I had more free time, I had more benefits and resources and people I could lean on while I did hyper-focus on all of my exam studies. And I could pay for these hundreds of dollars of exams and thousands of dollars of going to conferences. That really made the difference for me to be able to break in. That was a bonus. That helped a lot, and I'll show you how here during this exercise. That was not something I could change at the time. It just was an advantage I had over other people in my position. You guys each have something. I don't know what it is. Think about it. What advantages do you have in your situation that you can use in your favor? Or appreciate the ones that you didn't even think about? Preparation, of course, though, are those things that we can change. I have a starting class of -3 because I used to send you emails that you hated. However, in increments, I could do things and modify my resume enough that I could at least counter out that negative debuff. Yeah, she might have been in marketing, but look at all this other stuff. That's how you do this. And I'm not telling you it's going to work every time. I'm not telling you I'm going to make it, you're going to get it like 50% of the time. No, all I'm doing is letting you weigh the dice in your favor. That's why you have buffs and debuffs. And we'll talk about the different things you can add and the ways in which you can think about that. All right, so it's time to apply, everybody. If you filled out your starter stats, you are ready to apply for your first job. This is to demonstrate how freaking hard it is to do this without modifying your resume. Go ahead and enroll. This is a check of at least 15. So you have to get at least a 15 or higher in order to score properly. You'll notice that when I did this as an example, my starting modifier was 7, -7. That means in order to get a 15 or higher, I would have had to get, I think I would have had to have what, 17? No, more than that. 22, thank you. I remember thinking this one was impossible and my brain just shut off. So let me roll and see how good I do. 10, 3, I don't even get a, sorry, I just get ghosted apparently. Great. All right. There are, however, things you can even do now. Please raise your hand, and you may not cheat now. I'm watching. Did you introduce yourself to someone in this room? Did you say hi? Raise your hand if you did. Someone new? And hands went down. All right. You guys, for the rest of the game, you can re-roll. Networking, meeting your friends, meeting people. This is one of the most powerful things you can do in this community. This is a community. That means people make it up. And I'm not saying they're going to get you an in. I have never, by the way, gotten a job from a referral. It's all been cold applications on LinkedIn. My coworkers had no idea who I was coming out of nowhere. Hi, sorry. What they can do for you is to look at your resume and give you some insight. They can keep an ear to the ground, and if they see something that you might be good for, they can send it to you. They can lift you up and make sure that you're feeling okay when you're looking for a new job. They can tell you when you're wrong. That's really powerful. I had to correct so many things about this presentation and my workshop that were wrong. I got very clearly told how I was wrong and incorrect in several very good ways. So the recommendations, and if you downloaded the worksheets, you'll notice that I have lists of projects. I have lists of different adjectives you could describe yourself as and things to lean into. I have lists of certifications you can consider. Those were all vetted by people way smarter and more senior than I. Don't let, please, we can argue all day long about why isn't this on there. It's just an example. But if you said hi to someone, you're allowed to put yes in this little drop down, and then you can re-roll. And, you know, since I did that, I cheated. I knew this was coming up. 14, which is still not 22 on a 20-sided die. Wouldn't have helped anyway, but you know, at least I got a little higher. All right. So one of the biggest ways in which you can break in is by actually liking the field. People smell people just looking for money, and it's not, I mean, I'm not doing this for free. I'm doing this for free. I'm not working for free. That's important. But passion goes a really long way. In this field, where things are changing constantly, you have to constantly be learning. You never stop. I don't care if you got your degree this year, what have you done in the last 3 months? Because things rapidly change. I'm looking at different threat actors at work than I was, what, 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks? Yeah, that was when we got that one. Yeah. That's how fast this changes. Only people who care will be able to keep up. So how can you show that you care in your resume? All right, so you guys ready to actually get through the door? This will be exciting. All right, there's 4 steps to reskilling your resume. The first is niching down. How many people, okay, raise your hand if you have said this. I want to get into cybersecurity. And then you have a friend who goes, great, what do you want to do? And then you go, yes. Can you raise your hand if you've said this or had someone say this to you? I'm really sorry. I once sent a friend who, oddly enough, worked in threat intel. I'd met him, I had him over as a webinar speaker at my cybersecurity employer. And I'm like, yeah, I really love doing it. I love being with you. I think I can do this. He's like, great, what do you want to do? I literally spent 45 minutes sending him 10 text messages that were like 2 paragraphs long. My coworker will also attest that I could totally do that. He later admitted he read none of that. And he said, great, you need to pick one. So you pick a specialization, and you just pick one for fun. This is the start, okay? You can be wrong here. I thought I wanted to be an auditor. You think I could really just, check it off and then tell somebody, yeah, you've got these things wrong. I'm not going to tell you how to fix it because that's liability, but you have them wrong. Yeah, no, I would die. But I thought I wanted to do that, and so it's okay if you're not right the first time, but you have to try and pick something. Then you're going to analyze the different job postings in that specialization. You're going to see how many of the skills do you already have from whatever you previously did, student, other employer, whatever. And then you're going to look at what do you still need to do, what is achievable versus what isn't. And then you're going to make sure your resume has those keywords. Yay, search engine optimization coming back to help, right? All right, these are actual job postings that I found last October, just for fun to look through. And things in green are things that I think I have. I like to think I'm a strong communicator. You guys can be the judge. I think we have speaker reviews. Things in red are really things that I cannot do, and I would be dumb to try, by my own personal opinion, at least given the time that I had. For example, I can understand IT infrastructure and networking given time, given lots of Googles and harassing my coworkers about things. I cannot do it quickly. When you are a SOC analyst, dear God, you do not have time to be like, hey, I forgot what port that was. Can you tell me? You don't have time. I would be a terrible SOC analyst, and that is traditionally one of the most entry-level positions in this non-entry-level field you can think of. That is not where my skill set lie, which meant that I had even harder road to hoe. There we go. You're also going to find things like cybersecurity consultant. This was, by the way, listed as an entry-level position. About half of job postings that I analyzed in a sample last October were at least one level senior, to what they actually advertised. This is where you get your entry level, 5 years experience, and CSSP, your CSIP encouraged. That's where you get this from. This was not acceptable. I could totally assess, manage, and mitigate risk. I had done so in a different context, and it was a pretty simple-ish reapplication of those previous skills where I was assessing risk for multi-million-dollar campaigns. On the other hand, I definitely could not lead implementation of cybersecurity requirements. This is off the table. I could not do that. It would be irresponsible of me to try. But then, after some time, intelligence analyst. Look, I can totally synthesize data and help with alerting services. I've done that repeatedly. Content marketing is all about research and how do you find the data within it that your audience needs and put it into a format that they can most use. Boy, that sounds familiar. I can also identify threats to reduce risk. Let me explore and see what the baseline is, what we have to work with, and then I can use those variables to figure out what is most pertinent. Yeah, I can do that. I can definitely find pertinent factual information. However, I could not, or at least immediately couldn't prove that I could support monitor engagements. I couldn't prove that I was able to find new collection sources, and specifically in named software. I had never had the chance to. So I had started to collect a list of skills and qualities and technologies that I needed to at least be familiar with, know what they were supposed to do, and how I could very quickly get up to speed if I ended up being employed. So, going back to our lovely character sheet, it's time for you guys to niche down. Pick a specialization. I have a drop-down list for each character class of what has been communally considered reasonable next steps. Now, you guys can shoot for the moon and do whatever you want. You can put in something else that I didn't think of. That's great. Good for you. Have fun. This is an example. You can always find exceptions to the rule. Don't at me. So, depending on what you pick, it's either going to be a reskill or a dual class. So click to go to the appropriate tab in your worksheet. You've probably already seen that I've been not nice. Reskill is a lot harder. This is because there's less crossover of your previous skill set. It could also need more advanced training. Like for me, being a SOC analyst would have been a reclass. It would have been a reskill because I simply did not have any of that. And I would have had to get good enough to be qualified for those interviews before they would have let me through. It also is popular. Who here put pen tester? Who wants to not fess up to the fact that they put pen tester? Let me give you some advice. Pen testing is not Mr. Robot. Pen testing is not Darknet Diaries, for the most part. I mean, it's cool as hell. I love that podcast. That's maybe like 5% of your time, if you're lucky. The rest of the time you are writing reports. You are trying to convince bureaucrats with budget that you should spend on a cost center that they don't actually care about until you find the exploding doll head. And if you want that reference to the Darknet Diaries episode, I will be happy to give it to you later. Until it's a liability, they don't care. And your scope of work probably limits you from actually proving that completely because you're working on an active production line to break in. I mean, they don't want you shutting down the surgery laser in the middle of an actual surgery if you're pen testing a hospital. Plus, because everybody else wants to do it, it's that much harder for you to get in, and wages are suppressed. So, I will punish you. I'm really sorry. Yeah, I know. But if you can still succeed despite that punishment, maybe. On the other hand, dual class is an easier next step and something I would highly recommend people consider. This has more and clearer crossover of your previous skill set. This could also be doing your current role at a security-related org. I had accidentally done this when I started doing content marketing at a cybersecurity vendor. I was encouraged to do the kind of research in cybersecurity, learn the systems, learn the lingo, understand the ramifications so that I better understood how our products and services fit in. But I just thought it was cool. And it made transitioning to my next company in an actual cybersecurity role a lot easier. So consider that if you're having trouble. These are also the less popular roles. If you're struggling and you have the requisite skills, consider an MSP, MSSP, a SOC analyst kind of role, maybe even a bad shift. That's going to be a great entry round. You're going to see a lot of different environments. And 1 or 2 years in the meat grinder, you can go elsewhere or at least get a better shift. It's going to take work, but that's going to be the easier next step. Not most desirable, but easier. From there, you can see that each of the reclasses or the dual classes differ slightly. I have made the debuff worse if you have picked reskill, because your previous career counts more against you if you decide on this route. I have also made it so that your previous abilities are worth less. So you carry over your primary ability from your previous class to use in an answer. It is, however, worth less. It is still a positive modifier, but instead of a 2, it's a +1. Because, again, they don't value that as much as that very niche role if you've gone for the harder route. In a dual class, your debuff is still existing. I mean, I don't think anyone's still really enthusiastic. I had a marketing background. But like, they can kind of understand it. They can squint and turn their head and see how that worked. From there, my previous ability still counts the same. This is one of those no disadvantage kind of moments. Your second step when you want to reskill your resume, and this is one of my favorites actually, find your unique angle. Soft skills are important, people. We'll get to that in a second. Ask your coworkers and your classmates, and it has to be your coworkers and your classmates. It cannot be your sister. Sorry, Abby. It cannot be your family. It cannot be people who have not worked with you in some capacity. You have to ask the people who have worked with you within your current role, even if it's not related to this, what makes me good at blah? Why do you think I'm good at blah? Great place for this, by the way, are your regular reviews, where your manager has to put that in for HR. Go ahead and get that. You need to gather all the reviews and compliments you get. When somebody slacks you, hey, thanks so much for doing this. This really helped. Screenshot it and put it in a Sunshine file. I whip it out on cloudy days when I feel like I'm an idiot to remind myself that, yes, I actually do know what I'm talking about, and this was just a bad day. Then you need to triangulate. You need to compare. So get 2 or 3 people to do this. See where they, with no prompting, have said the same thing over and over again. Those are the things that you can personally lean into on your resume or in an interview conversation on your LinkedIn profile, which, yes, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, please get one. I don't care if you don't put your real head, but like, have one, please. Please. I know it's awful. Just please. You can lean into those qualities and know for sure it's not just you being optimistic about what you're good at. It's what other people think you're good at, too. This is really important because there's a lot of non-technical skills that hiring managers specifically think are valuable on a team, on a cybersecurity team specifically. Raise your hand if you personally or have heard of someone, another hiring manager, have somebody come through who was really good at technical work, but they didn't get hired because they were an ass. All right. I've not been hired because I was an arrogant person at some point in an interview process, and I look back and cringe really hard. I was overcompensating for my insecurity in that part. Soft skills are important. They will prevent you from being hired. Take it seriously. And if you're not good at it, don't just think, meh, who needs it? I'm good at the technical stuff. Just put me in a corner and I'll grow mushrooms on my hacker hoodie. Which, I mean, yeah, but we'll get to why that's important, but in short, by the time you get to an interview series where they can assess your soft skills, they're not just looking at, can you do the job? They've seen that on your resume. They're more looking at, do I want to work with this person? Be someone other people want to work with. This was a really lovely compliment that somebody actually screenshot to me. So at my first cybersecurity role, I was the head of communications, security communications and planning for a threat intelligence and research group at an MDR. I was in charge of helping to put together materials, narratively, to make a CTF make sense. We told a story with our CTF. It was using the product, so I was really trying hard to make it like universally applicable instead of a very clear demo. I tried. One of those things, though, was that they asked for my help to put together a trailer based to advertise on LinkedIn, because nobody else wanted to do it. Okay, fine. So I put it together. I had previously worked with freelancers, so I knew how to put together a creative brief. I knew how to put together instructions for someone so that they could follow what I wanted, and I can yeet that thing over the fence, and they won't bug me. I've put in all the work. You have all the answers. Please let me do the actually important stuff now. Turns out, this was one of the best instructions they'd ever gotten. And my friend was like, yeah, did you hear how good that, I'm like, they just haven't bugged me. I assumed it was all okay. They screenshot this and gave it to me because they were talking in the back channel about what a nice job I had done on this. One, awesome coworker. God, thank you so much. And 2, I kept this for a sunshine file so I could remind myself when that same job laid me off about 8 months later that I was good at what I did. And 3, it told me that one of my skills, unsolicited, it told me that one of my best skills was being able to lay out documentation to extract the important bits and communicate information to someone who is not technically skilled to understand what they needed to do, why that was important, and execute. Our marketers had no idea how any of our tech worked or why this was relevant. That was half of the brief. And they did a bang-up job on it, honestly. It had a flaming green skull. It was really cool. So, for the sake of this exercise, and of course you guys all have more than one, but for the sake of this exercise today, pick one quality, one soft skill that you think you have. You don't have time to do the triangulation, but these are, by the way, a list of skills and innate qualities that my hiring manager friends who have hired in cyber, which I have not done, have considered to be important in hiring. So, if you're looking for a soft skill to try and perfect, pick one of these, or to demonstrate. By the way, kind is just the rule of don't be a dick. From there, The third step is going to be doing victories over tasks. This is a bit of copywriting advice for you. And if you have not, and I swear I'm not sponsored, Allison, if you want to change that. One of the most formative books I ever received was a PDF that I paid $25 for from some blogger who just self-published on her blog. $25, and I got a PDF called How to Get a Job. Allison Green also runs the askamanager.org blog. Fantastic. In it, she provides this particular copy formula, which I have used to very great effect. And this should get you started on thinking your resume, your materials, what you talk about. Oh, what do I do for a living? Don't talk about a job description. You are just like every other blank-faced person in this resume stack if you do that. You talk about what makes you different. You talk about what you have succeeded and what you have done and what you have accomplished. That is what makes you different. And if you can't think of that, you need to start really thinking now and gathering evidence. Again, your Sunshine File is a great example for this. So you did X using Y as measured by Z. And Z should be some sort of number. My coworkers will tell you, I harp on numbers. Prove it to me. How did this work? How did this happen? What was the impact? Prove it. Estimate, and flag if you're estimating. Don't try and exaggerate. Do not lie with this. We're in cyber. It happens. So the first, I could have picked a lot of different examples, but my first resume was covered in things like that. No wonder people didn't call me back. I had to revise my resume to show that I was able to do data analysis. So I don't think at any point anyone who's hired me has actually cared how much revenue I brought in. That's a marketing metric. However, it shows that I'm able to use data to speak persuasively. It means that I can measure impact, not only impact, but I can measure dollar impact that impacts the business, which is, in threat intel, really important. This is a great way, by the way, that I am showing that I am data-driven and logical, not just saying in a summary, I am a data-driven, logical person. Make sense? And now we're back to proving it. On the right is a screenshot of my portfolio, which was the last page. I had 3 pages of my resume that I typically submitted. 10 years worth of work. It took a minute to, consolidate. I had earned those 2 pages at that point. But that 3rd page was just this nicely printed table proving, of all of the publicly available evidence I could provide, that I could do the job. I had done the things. This is an example of all of the work and ways that I can perform. I'm not just telling you that I wrote emails, I'm showing you. I'm not just telling you that I produced webinars, I am showing you. I'm not just telling you that I accidentally wrote up threat intel profiles without actually knowing that that was what that was called or why that was important. I'm showing you. So, you get to pick one. And now we're to augmentation of your resume. This is how you prove that you can do the work. Because it's not enough to just want to pivot into cyber, you have to prove that you can do it. You may pick one. And before we get on me about certifications, which very briefly, I have badges, which is your in-person conferences, in-person for that networking element. We have certifications, which are, or exam passes, frankly. I have 2 certs and 5 exam passes because I don't have the time in industry yet to have the cert. I certainly haven't spent 5 years auditing to get my CISA, even though I passed the exam and realized halfway through that I would never do this professionally. That was a waste of money. Oops. Better now than later. And then projects, personal projects. What are things you do in your off time to prove that you're passionate and curious and continuously learning? We're back to that's the differentiator if you want to break in. You're not jaded. You want to continue developing. So before we get into, and knowing that this is drawn from a research project that has a certification process, so take it with a grain of salt, but certifications are valuable because they prove knowledge. They don't prove experience unless you're certified. But the passing of the exam proves knowledge. And when you're pivoting in from a different career, knowledge is the thing you need. You'll also notice here that I'm limiting you to just one, though of course you can augment your resume with as many as you want in real life, as many as you have time for. And I put gold. Each one gold next to each of these selections is worth about 100 USD. You are limited in money. You are limited in time. Choose wisely. So now we can reroll. And that's taken our initial starting modifier from a -7 to a -6, which makes it possible if I get a 19 or 20. Still very, very high, and you have to try a lot of times to get that break. But now it's possible instead of trying to roll a 22 on a 20-sided die. I just said I would help. I can't guarantee anything, especially in this market, dear Lord. I got an 8, though. Oh well. All right, so let's pretend for a second that I actually succeeded, which I think I've done once in practicing all of these. Let's do some interview advice quick. Relax. If you got through HR and you're onto the hiring manager round, we are back to the, do I want to work with this person? Make it so that you're someone they want to work with. Doesn't mean suck up. That means don't be a dick. If you're struggling with this, not that it's ethical to use social engineering for this, but Charisma on Command is a very interesting channel, and that's where I'll leave that. Also, pause. Don't try and be fast with your answer. Think for a moment. Pause, she says to herself. Think through, and be logical and direct and walk someone through your response. If you've heard of STAR interview, it's a situation, task, action, and result. There's a similar acronym in the DoD, which I don't remember offhand, but it's the same thing. Thank you. You can usually tell that you're about to get one of these because it's, tell me about a time when. They want you to tell a story. So tell them a story. Start at the beginning. What was the context? What were you trying to do? What was the challenge or the villain or the bad guy you had to overcome? And then what's really important here, think like our lovely Skyrim guard. What would you have done differently next time? Because you'll see it again. Make sure that they know that you can think through your problems. If you get a challenging question, ask for clarification. Oftentimes, I'll try and reframe the question or ask them to say it in a different way, and they'll give you more clues about how they're thinking about the question that you can try and respond to that rather than directly the question you don't know. And since you're pivoting in, you will admit when you've not done something or you don't know and explain how you would approach it. In the gauntlet of interviews I did for my current position, I had a coworker ask me about something, and I blinked on the pyramid of pain. I literally just looked at that, and I could not remember the term. I described it really well. I could not remember it, and I felt like an idiot because it's really basic. I still got the job, even though I admitted I didn't know something really easy. But you should also explain how you would find it. I don't know, but I would start here. I don't know, but this is what I would try and search for, and this is what I would try and look. Security is all about unknowns. If you don't know how to find your way through an unknown to a solution, you're not going to be a good security person. So, I would challenge you all to think about this question, because this is a really good one. How would you prioritize a list of critical CVEs for patching or remediation? And now you roll. You got to get over an 18. Yeah, that's a check of 18. Got to get over an 18. Might be possible, might not. And if you get a reroll, for anyone who's got a reskill class, you can only draw from, think about how a session here gave you the information or an approach to answer that question that you wouldn't have had otherwise. If you're dual class, you can now talk about your previous job experience because it's not as much of a weight against you. So, very quickly, again, you can go there and you can get the worksheets that we'll be working through at my workshop tomorrow for you guys to have in reference. Opportunity equals luck plus preparation multiplied by the number of attempts, where there are things outside your control and in your control. It's not right, it's not fair, but you have to be that much better. And you can. You have limited resources. Please use them wisely. Don't try and do everything. Do the things that matter and that you're good at. And then finally, you need to prove you can do the work. I'm not here advocating for just any random person to get in. You need to prove you can do it, not just say it. And that certifications can help with knowledge. They do not prove experience. So go to conferences and network with people. Work on personal projects. I accidentally made a TIP, a threat intelligence platform, before I knew what that was, cobbled together with some very weird Zapier automations and Feedly, because I got tired of losing links. But I did that, and that was really cool in some of my interviews. And with that, I wish you nothing but D20s, and I don't know if we have time for questions. We do! Head nod. So thank you all so much. And if you have questions or would like a D20, how do we do this? I don't know. Anybody have a question? Comment? Concern? Yes, sir.
Where they at? It's right there. All right.
Yes, okay. So the question was, I'm a master's degree student, they're booking my time way much. How the hell do I balance the technical stuff I'm being asked in my master's program with the soft skills that I'm recommending? I'll be honest, practice making friends. And this is weird, I know. I purposely picked my undergrad. I started off at Penn State University main campus, which has 40,000 undergrads, and I figured if I screwed up making friends, there was always another person I could try with. That was literally my logic. Wow, that was sad. But I learned how to approach someone and how not to. You learn how to do interviews by doing more of them. So take the people around you and practice reaching out. Practice being kind or patient, or think of ways you can do it within your classroom. A great example is if your professor offers office hours, go. They automatically like you because they're bored as hell. And just practice listening. I think that's another thing too. Cybersecurity, as much as I've been talking up here, active listening is really important. Not just hearing what you want to hear and waiting for your chance to talk, but absorbing what they say and responding to that and then asking them a question in turn. Those are two really easy ways that you can practice your soft skills even when you're super busy. Beyond that, again, charisma on command. It's pretty fun. I reversed engineered green flags for being asked out on dates. It was weird because I wanted to stop. Long story is, lots of applications there. Anyone else? Yes. There are many personal projects you can do. In the character sheets that you have for Excel, there's a whole drop-down list of any of them, and a lot of them you can do for free. Otherwise, there's a whole list of different ideas and personal projects in the worksheets for the workshop tomorrow. In terms of personal projects, though, again, I wrote threat profiles in my previous research that I didn't think were relevant. I didn't realize what they were at the time, so I featured those things. I featured things from my previous life that cybersecurity people could or should care about, not necessarily the entire repertoire. Not everybody needs to see what a wonderful job I did on branding, for example. But, the webinar that I held on, generative AI for InfoSec and hackers that I produced, that's probably pretty relevant to feature. So think about the things in your previous life that you've done. Think about things that are free. And that's another opportunity for networking. Partner with people who are smarter and better than you and ask if you can help or learn. You not only get a byline on that, but you get help. No. Last question. Yes. So great point, too. And that's actually one of the personal projects listed on the list, and you just reminded me, volunteering. I met someone just today it's her first BSidesCharm, and she is volunteering as physical security staff. What a wonderful thing. I mean, that is just remarkable. I wasn't brave enough to submit to this conference until I went last year for the first time. But volunteering is a great way to give back to the community, show you're dedicated, get a free ticket in for when you're not working, and it gives you something really lovely to put on your resume. But more than that, the things you learn at a conference, the people you talk to, they're going to be the difference, and they're going to probably be the difference between a failure and a success. So really consider how you're going to become part of the community and what you can add to it. Again, I wish you all many 20s. Thank you so much for coming.